Thank you for taking the time to watch this episode of Life Support. If you enjoy the content, we would ask that you like it, hit subscribe, and share it with your friends. Welcome to Life Support. I'm so glad you're here. And what we do in this program is we tell stories about how God redeems and how God furthers his kingdom through all of us. And there are some wonderful things happening. You know, sometimes we get caught up in the negative, but God is doing so many things that are positive, and we want to highlight that. And my guest is doing just that. His name is Matthew Barnett. He's the founder of the Dream Center in LA. He is doing an amazing work. And Matthew, thanks again for being with us. It's wonderful to have you here. You have told us a little bit about the organization, and I want to delve into some personal stories, but give us kind of a refresh about what the Dream Center is and what you're doing and the kind of ministries that you offer.
Yeah, I mean, if you could just imagine a big old hospital on the Hollywood freeway that looks like a ship that's 400,000 square feet below the Hollywood sign, that's open every day for anybody in need, runaway street kids, people who have drug addiction, fentanyl, meth, families that need a meal, they'll come by and get a meal in our cafeteria, police that drop off people to the Dream Center to take in because they don't want to put them in prison. They believe that maybe a second chance at the Dream Center is a better path. Grocery stores, clothing stores, people can come in and go shopping for the neighborhood, and just a place without bars and windows that's open 24 hours a day to the mission of showing in Los Angeles that, you know, beneath the broken Hollywood dream, there's people putting people back together again and seeing lives being restored. And so that's the joy that we get to be a part of every day. And even today, I just, I came in and we just talked to a dad, and I said, well, let's get you and your son out of the car you're living in and give you a place to stay. So it really is a place that over 30 years we've been able to start tackling a lot of different needs and just be that church that never sleeps in the community.
You know, a lot of people think of LA and they think of the movie industry, obviously, but 99% of the people are not involved with the movie industry, and they're just regular people. And it's an expensive city. It's a massive city. There's a lot of hurt in that city, isn't there?
Oh, there is. There are so many situations where you look around, we go down to our clothing store, our grocery store that we have, and you wonder, how are these people making it? Then you see working class fathers just substituting a meal at our cafeteria just so maybe they can eating here so they can provide for their family. And then even as I'm talking to you, just kind of glancing over the computer, I'm looking at the Hollywood Hills. And there are people in that area that will never leave. They have their own newspapers, they have their own community. They've never even crossed tracks into like 5 miles down the road to see a whole different world. It is a city that's very interesting, where you can go from gang violence and guns, and then a mile down the road, you can go to great wealth and great prosperity. And so it's just it's a very interesting, bizarre city of just gentrification mixed with gangs in our community, and all these kind of things happening at once. I always tell people the weird thing about LA is when I go speak at other churches, maybe in the Midwest or South or something, it's kind of nice because you go to a restaurant and you see families that went to church, like they're dressed up or they look like they've been to church. You never see that around Dream Center restaurants. Never. You just see just people living their lives. And so it's a very it's a challenging place to pastor because of the fact that there's no fundamental values people have, but it's also kind of an exciting place to pastor because I never get complaints about music. I never get complaints about style. I never get complaints about which version of the Bible that you use. None of that. It's so it's got weaknesses in one area, but it's got strengths in the other, where everyone is kind of in awe and wonder about anything that pertains to God because it's so new to them and they weren't raised that way. So you got your strengths and then you got your little disadvantages at the same time that make it a very interesting place to pastor.
Well, obviously God put you where he wanted you to be, and you must have the privilege of watching God touch them and change their lives. Can you tell us a story or two of someone that pops into your mind where you've seen God take them from here to there and change their lives?
Yeah, I mean, the most impactful story is actually the recent one, which was, a Sunday in November of this year, we had a young lady that graduated our women's rehab program. She's been here for 16 years. She's only about 20 years of age. She came in about 18, and when they picked her up in the car, she was 80 pounds. Her hair was strung out, and she had been sold by her father into the adult film porn industry at 15 years of age. She had been passed around from friends. They were doing underground videos. They were doing all these horrible things to her. She was raped the day before by several men before she came here. A friend literally got her in the car and drove her out to the Dream Center who knew about us. And when I saw her come to the program, I thought to myself, how can this person change? And she came in the program, didn't look up for 3 months, was totally devastated. And then I started like to see her head slowly begin to lift. And then the word just began to just get into her spirit. The word every day, call it beans and rice of Jesus Christ around here. It's the word in rehab. It's the word. And she started being empowered by what God was saying about her and all the people surrounding her. And I saw her 16, from 80 pounds, probably about 30, 40 pounds heavier on stage, giving the most unbelievable testimony. And I'm sitting there thinking to myself, this is so mind-boggling that somebody can go through that much damage. And then she talked about going back home after she graduated for 1 week. And all of her old clients started calling her up, and all of her, I hate to say it, but all of her old dad's friends started calling her up, trying to get hookups, things like that. And she said, I was able to say no. And she said, it was a battle, but I was able to say no. And I'm back in my safe place, the Dream Center, after passing that test and saying hi to certain friends back home. And I thought, wow, it is like the battle for that soul and the battle for that life, and to see how far God has brought her, and to see, you read these Bible stories where God does something in someone, then they're in their right mind, or they're healed, or they go a different way. And we kind of celebrate those things, but we're living in those things right now, through a different scenarios of life and a different pain and heartache people go through. And that was one of the great stories at the Dream Center.
That is really good. And you mentioned that, we're in a spiritual war. There's a very real enemy that we face, and he wants to destroy everything that God is doing, everything good that God is doing. How do you see spiritual warfare play out day to day in the situation that you're in there in Los Angeles?
Such a great question. Years ago, I decided to live 3 days homeless on Skid Row, which is a homeless capital of America. We're just right down here a few miles. And I slept there. I brought my cardboard box, and I was shocked because when I walked through there, I felt like I was going to die. People were threatening me. And then I held my Bible, just started walking around, and somehow everyone in Skid Row nominated me as the Skid Row pastor because I was holding a Bible. And people asked me to come and talk to them in their tents. And so I was talking to guys with needles in their arms, and it was devastating. And the one common thread that I had in talking to every one of them of why they were down there is almost all of them said they were there because of regret and shame. Most of them were 2 miles away from their family they could reconnect with. But the shame factor was so heavy, they never felt they could ever get back again. So they fell into this mindset of why bother? And that's the first thing we try to do at the Dream Center when people come into our rehab program, is when they have failed or they're addicted or they're coming off of meth or drugs, we try to shine the biggest spotlight of hope on them immediately. Because when there's no revelation, people cast off restraint. When there's no reason to live, there's no reason to have self-control. So we shine them, and we break that shame and regret and all that. And then it gives them a hope for the future. And then in time, we're able to walk them through the behavior problems and the issues and the spiritual downfalls and the weaknesses along the way. But I just feel like there's so many people that get to this why bother mindset and regret and shame, and the enemy just keeps them down for so long to where they never feel like they could ever come back. And so LA becomes a safe place for them to just fade away and die. And weather is good. All kinds of factors involved. Drugs are pretty much legal to a large extent, some things you can do. And so they just find this as a safe place to lose their life and their passion and their spark, and just kind of gradually fade away into this place of, I can never get back. And so the Dream Center is trying to, we don't tell people when they come into recovery, because most people when they come into recovery, this is what they say. Oh man, when I get my family back, then I'm back. When I get my job back, then I'm back. I get my money back. And the number one thing we tell people, the evidence of your comeback has nothing to do with what you get back. When you have God back, you have everything back. So you're not starting from trying to get things back. You're starting from a place of, when you have God, everything is back in your life. And then I think that's a really encouraging message to people. Even David, when he fell, he just wanted to have a good spirit, a right spirit with God again. And so you have to like help people on what you can build on, not on what they've lost along the way.
Yeah. Matthew Barnett is my guest. He's the founder of the LA Dream Center. We're talking about his amazing ministry. Just to follow up again on spiritual warfare, personally, you're the leader of a big organization. You're on the front lines. How do you protect yourself spiritually? Because I'm sure that Satan has a target on your back. So what
Hmm.
do you do day to day to keep yourself in God's hands and away from the stuff that Satan is trying to throw at you?
I have to literally take walks around campus every day and see the people we're trying to help. To feel the weight and the responsibility of what's going on, that really allows me to have a proper perspective, not to lose sight of what God's called us to do and what He's built, and sacred reverence for what He's built. Usually, when I pray less or I'm just not connected with God, is when I'm not connected to people. So I have to throw myself into the valley of need. I have to throw myself into an outreach. I got to go downstairs, and talk to the people in line at the food line, or go in the kitchen, have meals with people. It's so easy for my heart and mind to get into managing mode and not to feel, the pulse of what's going on. Because when I get in managing mode, I get sloppy in every single way. But when I get into that place where I do it for the right reasons, and I love people just from the sake of a basic level, it just brings me so much more joy. And I think it brings me a lot more, desire to want to work. I mean, when people donate to the Dream Center, like the website connects to my phone, and when I see $20 come in, $30 come in, whatever, it just reminds me of, man, how hard, people are working for us, and how much people are pulling for us, and how the enemy would love to have this prized possession of this place. And so I've just got to be thankful. I can't have a martyr complex, which is like we're the only one who cares because we're here. I have to have the mindset that everybody cares because everybody does care in their own way. I'm just called for this. Doesn't make me any more compassionate or judgmental. We just have got to carry a very positive, winning, non-martyr message as if we're in the best place in all the world. Because I think the enemy knows there's certain areas that, I've been raised in, fundamentally I'm strong, but if he can get me discouraged, 'cause I'm such a energetic leader type of thing. But if he can get me into a place of discouragement, that's the great battle, and you have to fight it all the time. I focus on the ones who make it through the program, not on the ones who didn't make it, because you gotta focus and celebrate the ones who do. 60% of people come through rehab, make it through 1 year, 40% don't. But I got to focus on the 60% that do. And so you just and then I think what's also encouraged me to keep me going is that God called me here for life. And so when you know that the finish line is down the road somewhere, you don't have to have everything overnight.
Mhm.
Like, it doesn't matter if things don't succeed the way I want to, because I have time. I think there's a certain kind of joy when you've given your life to something, that you just walk it out every day, and eventually these things all, start to build the way God wants it to build. So that's kind of freed me at the same time. Prayer life, finding what that system works for you, finding what every day I'm just taking walks in the park, just trying to remain strong in the things of God, not distracted, and not realizing everything I have to respond to all the time. And I'm such a people pleaser by nature, so it's very easy for me to fall in the trap of, I got to do everything people want because I got to make them happy. But ultimately, you've got to do what you got to do to protect the longevity of your calling as a leader, because a lot of the people you're trying to make happy won't be with you next month. You know what I mean? So you got to do what you got to do to stay strong long term.
I like that whole vision of being called here for life, because not only does that give you time, but it also stops you from wanting to resign every Monday morning. You know,
Yes,
pastors want to resign every Monday.
they do.
But when you understand your calling, then you can just go like, well, no, let's just, today I'm tired. I'll be okay tomorrow. And, you have a real sense of who you are and why you're there. And so Satan has a lot harder time poking at that, because and I think that's an important lesson for all of us. Like, be sure of your calling. And yeah, you may
Yeah.
not be at the church you're at forever, because pastors rarely are. But while you're there, that's where you're supposed to be.
Yeah, yeah. And I've also learned to appreciate people's contribution along the way. Like, not everyone's going to be in our church forever. When I first started ministry, I was very discouraged. People leave our church or go somewhere else. And I think as I've grown through the years, I'm just glad that they're somewhere. I'm glad they're getting the word in them. I'm glad that have a chance. And I think as a ministry grows as leader, you have to grow and realize that as much as you think, it might be true that you've cultivated a wonderful place and you might think it's the best, you probably should. But there's always going to be people that come along the journey for a season at a time. And then, then you got your great pillars that will be there forever that really love and value. But I just, people come and go, but you just have to just kind of love them at every level. And that's one of the great lessons I've learned over time. So many new pastors come to LA and maybe they have big social media followings. They get off to huge starts and they come to me and say, Pastor, what happened? We got off to a big start. Now we're down like 30%. I'm like, that's good. I mean, now you kind of know what you have to build on. Don't worry about that, and stay encouraged, stay in the fight. It's not always about what you see. And there's some Sundays we have bigger crowds. Some Sundays we don't. I can't always figure it out. But I don't worry. I don't even look back anymore and worry about. I never look back and we have a great crowd, but I never assess it or worry about it because it's just my job. I just fall in love with being faithful and doing what I can do the best I can and loving God and having a good spirit. And God's going to build the way He wants to. We're going to try everything we can to reach more people, but there's a certain kind of joy just being rooted in the fact that we get to do this. I'm still feel like the kid that gets put in the end of the game and he only gets to play for 30 seconds and he runs around, but he's so excited that he's in the game. I just try to keep that mentality in everything that I do. I just get to be in the game, and that's enough for me.
Yeah, good for you. All right, so in the few minutes we have left, what are your dreams for the Dream Center? What kind of things are you just praying about, and when you lay awake at night, you're going wow, this would be so great if.
Yeah, we have about 100 plus Dream Centers across America, and in our Dream Center network. But what I would really love to do is I would love to have one more shot at a big hospital in the city like this. One more shot at building maybe in East LA or South Central or somebody at some place to where we can handle the overflow of this place. This has taken my whole life, this Queen of Angels Hospital, but to have one more great adventure in the other part of the city to do something like this would be really, really excited for our overflow of families that are homeless and to just give us one great last mission that we take on during the second half of the journey God's given us.
That would be exciting. So we can all pray about that. And to get more information or to keep track of your dreams, how do we find out more about Dream Center?
Dreamcenter.org. It has everything on there, ways that you can support, ways that you can send somebody in need who needs help. Just all kinds of great stuff. Youth groups, pastors bring them out every week on mission trips. And it's one of the most inexpensive trips that you can take. Room and board, housing are all here. We got the whole map out of ways you can go out to the streets and serve with us, and got attendants that will take you out with them. It's a great program. So would love to have you.
One final question. You're in LA, massive city. I'm here in Minneapolis, a large metro area. There's millions of people around us. We can't help everyone. We want to, but we can't. So how do you then, in your mind, say, I can only help some? I know you want to help everybody, right?
Yeah.
How then do you process that each day as you see the incredible need that is before you? And yet you said, we have limited space. I'd love to have more space. How do you process that with God?
It's very tough. Sometimes we process it by limiting stuff that we as staff need to open up more. I mean, we just fight the extra mile and go there. And then you have to realize that, maybe God's put us in a position where we have all that He wants us to have right now to be able to take care of those very well in what He's doing. And so that's also a challenge too, because there's just so much effort that goes into one person on this campus. We put so much spiritual growth and development into people, but it's very difficult, especially but we always seem to find a way to find a spot for people. I don't know how it works. Someone's either graduating or leaving or packing up their bags. It's mind-boggling how that waiting list, it always seems to, we have an off season. We have no youth groups that are coming in for 3 or 4 months. We put them in a temporary place, until we need those floors back again. And then when they get to the temporary, someone else moves out. So I feel like God always reshuffles it in such a beautiful way to where very rarely do we ever feel like we can't do what we want to do in this big old hospital. It's a huge place. And so we have a lot of latitude. We have a lot of places we can get creative with. And I never want to lose that instinct that we have, that let's take in one more, let's find a way. Because I think that's what's built this place, is that unbelievable sense of just like, you know, sometimes it's easier to say yes to something than 100 million reasons why you can't do it. And that's what built it. That's what we kind of want to sustain and yet stay with great organization and structure as well.
Yeah, I'm always reminded when Jesus healed the man who was waiting at the side of the pool for the angels to stir the water. And there, you know, there must have been thousands of people there. And Jesus walked in, he healed the guy and walked out.
Yeah.
Kind of going like, well, wait a minute. What about those other people? What were they thinking? But Jesus knew what his calling was. He knew what his mission was for that moment. And when you're focused on that, then I think God can lead you to do what you're doing. And that's exactly what he wants you to do at that point. But if you get caught up in I can't do, then you get yourself discouraged and in a lot of trouble quickly.
Oh, definitely. And that's always a great battle, especially, you know, our staff, all my staff's been with me over 20 years. So it's a really great luxury because you can like blink and they know what you're thinking. And then you get new blood that comes in there. And so we're just constantly trying to mix in, you know, really great foundational people and then new people all the time. But it's the work that we do draws people you never could pay, like retired people who come in and spend the rest of their life living on a floor with guys in rehab program. I mean, it's something that we have the best of the best. And yet I always call the Dream Center like the Oakland A's of ministry, where we get a lot of guys who we're low budget. We raise up a lot of great guys and we lose them to big ministries and they become dynamic, but it's okay. We had that minor league system. We're always 80% of my staff are graduates of our drug and alcohol rehab program. 80%. We always say we have ex gang members, we got ex murderers, and that's just a pastoral staff. That's not including everybody else we have going on, you know? So it's like you said, it's knowing who you are. Some people are the Yankees, man, and they, you know, their structure, they're more dressed up and they come to the office. Here we're very casual, you know, and no one really freaks out. Someone wears jeans and a t-shirt, you know, but it's just flourishing in who you are, not trying to be anybody else. If that's your mindset, your belief, and everyone value, that's one thing that's so great about leadership. Everyone has a different way about it, but if it's centered on Christ and the Word of God, the principles of truth, those are things that you can't negotiate on. But all the other things, you know, we all have our different systems. Like my dad, they're much more Yankees oriented. We're much more like the Moneyball team, you know, the ragtag army of people. It's fun either way, and it works either way when God's put it in your heart.
Well, you won my heart when you started using baseball analogies. So good job on that. That's something I can relate to for sure. I think you're doing unbelievable work, Matthew. Thanks.
Oh, by the way, the Dodgers support us. Clayton Kershaw is one of our biggest donors of the Dodgers. Really? And Justin Turner.
You know, not to get too much in the weeds here, but I'm a Diamondbacks fan, so I'm learning to appreciate the Christians who are on the Dodgers. But they're still wearing a Dodgers uniform, so I still believe God can work through that. But no,
I understand that.
There's a lot of really good guys that like him that do a lot of things that nobody knows about. So I'm glad you shared that. I appreciate that. And you take good care. Thanks for sharing what you're doing. It's amazing.
Thank you. It's an honor to meet you.